Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. You've heard me talk about the cutting-edge building materials that you can find there. Well, take a look at this example. This home, the only one left standing in its neighborhood after a hurricane ripped through Mexico Beach, Florida, was built with Nudura insulated concrete forms. These things are like Lego blocks. They're incredibly strong and energy efficient. Sturdy as can be, as you can see, but energy efficient, cost efficient. Ask the folks at A.G. Hines Company about Nudura. Do it this week. Get down there and see them. They've got cutting edge materials on everything. We'll be telling you about those in the weeks to come. All right, take a look here back at Tennessee's schedule. Just as a reminder, the big game each year, these are their only Power 5 folks for the next 8 years. And my guess is, based on what I've seen, they're not going to be having years where they play 2 Power 5 opponents. So I don't think they're going to be adding games in here. So I think this is what you got. Virginia, NC State, Syracuse, all neutral site. Nebraska, there and then here. West Virginia, neutral site. And then Washington, here and then there. Let's compare that to Florida. Oh, boy.
How'd you get all those in?
Yeah, that's I got a good graphic guy working for me. I'll just, Utah. This is a team that has Florida State every year, home and away. All right? Tennessee, if they had Florida State, or as you'll see with South Carolina, if Tennessee had Clemson, that would be it. Mm-hmm. That would be it. These teams are going out and scheduling over that. In addition to Florida State each year, Florida's adding in Utah. Next year, they got in-state rivals Miami and UCF both. There's danger in playing those in-state schools. I mean, Tennessee won't play Memphis. You got Miami and Florida State. You got NC State, Cal and Florida State, Cal and Florida State, Colorado and Arizona State, Colorado by themselves. I got Texas there, so that's wrong. I'm not used to having Texas in the SEC, so Texas would be a conference game at that point. That won't be on the schedule. But UCF and Florida State, that's bold, baby. That's impressive. Now let's take a look at Georgia. Same thing. They've got Georgia Tech, okay, but they've got games mixed in. Clemson, UCLA. Well, coming to Athens, in addition to Georgia Tech, you've got games with UCLA. You've got games with Louisville. You got Florida State. You've got Clemson and Ohio State in the same year.
Yeah.
That's like a playoff in Athens. Yeah. Their fans are getting loaded up. All right, next. And this is the weak link of the league.
Oh.
There you go. That's if you ever wonder if a program sucks, listen, and the coaches and the ADs will tell you. They're telling you, we can't get to a bowl, we can't win unless we schedule like this. And I think Tennessee is starting to tell you that. They're saying, we suck. And if Kentucky fans are mad at me for saying that, it's Mitch Barnhart, your athletic director, who's saying it because you won't schedule anyone but Louisville. Not exactly the cream of the crop in college football, but that's as tough as you'll get. Next, Missouri. Okay, not big brands, but rivals, Illinois and Kansas for them. Plus, you've got home games, Kansas State, Boston College, Kansas, Illinois, twice, and Colorado. You're at least getting Power 5 teams into Columbia. Next up, South Carolina, the other Columbia. Look at this. In addition to having Clemson every year, they're going to play North Carolina and Virginia Tech on neutral sites. They got Miami as a home game. They got North Carolina as a home game. They got NC State as a home game. That's on top of Clemson. You wouldn't go anywhere near that at the moment. And then finally, Vanderbilt. All right, they've got an opening in 2030. They got Wake Forest at home. They got NC State at home. They got Purdue at home. They're on the road at Stanford, on the road at NC State, on the road at Virginia Tech. You got Virginia Tech in a neutral site, but technically that's at Titan Stadium. So that's really another home game for their fans. So let's combine all this and just give you the breakdown for the entire SEC. All right, you see the Power 5 foes. This is listed by the home games, what the fans get. Tennessee at the very bottom. Tennessee fans in the next 8 years will have 2 Power 5 teams at home. Florida, I've got them up there with 9. Take Texas out of that, so they've got 8. Georgia has 9. Alabama fans get 7. South Carolina fans get 7. Missouri fans get 6, 5. On down the road, and look there at the neutral site games. LSU has 3. South Carolina 2. You've got 4. All right, here's my question for Josh. Is that just smart business? Kentucky would say, we built our program doing this. You can say we suck all you want. We're winning. Is that smart business to do it that way?
Well, I think there's some more information about business being good.
Yep.
And the record was really good last year, and I think the record has a really good chance to be good again, maybe great again this upcoming season. Part of that is helped by you should go 4-0 in non-conference. So my personal preference is to see higher level, higher caliber opponents and see more home and home. But if neutral site against weaker opponents gives you a better chance for another win, that gives you more excited fans, probably gives you more dollars.
Smart business, or is it coming at a cost?
Well, I think if it continues with the expanded playoff and maybe a newer SEC schedule, and maybe you kind of level off a little bit, and then it costs you, then yeah, I think you can say big mistake. But there's not really any incentive for Danny White to change right now, and I think the SEC scheduling has to come to fruition. See if they are going to go to 9 games, and then we'll see if any of these other teams that have scheduled up, if they buy out of those games, because now you have a tougher SEC slate, and now they negotiate out of those, and maybe it comes back to Tennessee. So they're just playing a little bit more of the waiting game right now.
And most people believe Tennessee is in that half the league that didn't want to go to a 9-game schedule.
Right.
They want to keep it at 8. So in other words, keep it as simple as possible. We want to Kentucky this thing. Ryan, Will, is this smart business?
I think they believe it is. I think they think it comes down to.
And we'll talk about money later.
Yeah,
So.
I think they believe it comes down to, are fans more likely to buy season tickets because of the record or because of the schedule? And I think they lean toward record, and I think the numbers would probably say they're right. I think most fans would prefer to see 10-2 over 9-3 every year, and they'd rather see, if you're a 7-5, 6-6 team, that could be the difference in going to a bowl game or having a winning record and not. So no matter which way you go, it's a big deal to have that win and to not take any chances with your non-conference schedule.
Buy your way into a sure thing bowl, because everybody wants to get to the Music City Bowl.
I don't love the idea of your entire business model is risk mitigation. I don't like that. And also you have to ask yourself, which neighborhood do you want to live in? Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Missouri, Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to be if you're Tennessee? You have to ask yourself that question. I don't have as much of a problem with the neutral site games, because if I'm a fan, I'll drive to Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte if you're playing someone.
Yeah, give
but
me
enough
better.
with Syracuse and NC State,
Yeah.
and no one wants to watch those games. So why are we scheduling tomato cans and they're away from home? To me, it's just kind of screwing over your fans a little bit.
So that's the way I look at it, and not to mention the fact, if I hear Tennessee fans talk about, well, we got to get in the playoff and we deserve more respect. No. You don't get to say we don't want to schedule like Alabama, and then say, well, we're better than Alabama. Not if you don't schedule better. You're telling me that you don't think you're as good as Alabama. If you won't schedule like them, you're saying, well, we're not that good. So you can't then turn around in football season and say, we're better than anybody. Well, which is it? Put your money where your mouth is. I just think right now, and for the record, this breaks down, I've got the graphics here that show me 1 through 10 what you're clicking on, and so far it is about 90 to 20 in terms of 90, yeah, it's not percentage-wise, but it's about 90 votes to 20 votes in terms of negative versus positive. It's staying right around below par, so we got to have people either drag it way over here or way over here to make it move. But below par is what you're saying so far, but it's far more people saying it's negative. I just think if I'm buying tickets, I want at least one good game. I mean, I go back, and maybe this is just, maybe I'm a freak. There are the people who look at it and say, hey, we went 11-1. Did you see the way we beat UT Martin? We put 70 on them. I wouldn't care. If you put money in my pocket, I wouldn't care about UT Martin. I remember as a kid, I was in college, Tennessee played Notre Dame. Tennessee was number 9 in the country. Notre Dame was number 1 in the country. Tennessee lost. One of the greatest games I've ever seen at Neyland Stadium, a spectacular down-to-the-wire game. You left that stadium thinking, my gosh, both these teams are just going to flood guys into the NFL, and they did. It was a loss, but I remember it as one of the great games I got to see. So, yeah, you want to win them, but I would rather lose a spectacular game that I'll remember for 30 years than beat UT Martin, which I will forget in 2 weeks.
But wouldn't you rather be 10-2 in a 12-team playoff, and yeah, you took an L to somebody that's a quality power conference team, maybe even at their place or at home, versus 11-1, you played a bunch of tomato cans in Syracuse. Like that you played your conference game, 3 cupcakes in Syracuse. What's the accomplishment there? To me, especially with an expanded playoff, you set yourself in a position to be able to schedule tougher opponents, so go ahead and do it.
Well, our arguments aren't working because the movement is going this way. If one more person votes on this side, it's going to go from below par to mediocre. Even after all the stuff we showed, there's no way to even argue that it's below par. It's embarrassing compared to the rest of the league. But that's why we're giving you this say. And if your say continues to be below par, we may discuss it in the future. If not, I'll bury this topic forever. There's your incentive to get on the click. All right. When we come back, while you tell us if you want a better schedule for UT, we'll tell you who we would put on a schedule and why we think those teams would be good. Come on back on the Sports Source.